Guide my feet while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Oh, guide my feet while I run this race. Oh, I don't want to run this race in vain. Now, I was not supposed to get to that whole thing with only a shadow. So you could actually pretend you know what Howard's life is about and act as if you're not going to leave people by themselves when they are calling for support, so the thing they're trying to rise does not die. And I don't care if you haven't ever sung it before. If you don't get out of the track you're in, you can't make a new thing. Guide my feet, harmony, while I run this race. Guide my feet while I run this race. Oh, guide my feet while I run this race. Oh, I don't want to run this race in vain. When I go, oh, I don't want, that's a blues line. So you just slide up the line, don't miss anything. I'm your child while I run this race. I'm your child while I run this race. Oh, I'm your child while I run this race. Oh, I don't want to run this race in vain. Stand by me while I run this race. Stand by me while I run this race. Oh, stand by me while I run this race. Oh, I don't want to run this race in vain. Hold my hand while I run this race. Hold my hand while I run this race. Oh, hold my hand while I run this race. Oh, I don't want to run this race in vain. Song comes out of slavery. And the song says, I know where I am, and I know I do not want to find myself there tomorrow. I cannot guarantee that I am going to get to some other place, but I can guarantee that I am stepping out of the ground I stand on. I've been thinking about how to talk about greed. I've been thinking about how to talk about greed. I've been wondering if I could sing about greed, trying to find a way to talk about greed. Greed is a poison rising in the land. the soul of the people twisted in its command. It moves like a virus, seeking out everyone. Greed never stops, its work is never ever done. A creeping, choking, killing, invading everywhere. There is really no escaping greed's sneaky snare. I've been trying to find a way to talk about greed. I've been trying to find a way to talk about greed. I've been wondering if I could sing about greed. Trying to find a way to talk about greed. Not partial to gender or your sexual desire. All it wants is for you to want, to own, to possess, and to buy. It moves within the culture, touching your soul. Greed really isn't picky. It'll make anybody fall. Greed is a strand in the American dream. Having more than you need is the essential theme. I've been trying to find a way to talk about greed. I've been trying to find a way to talk about greed. I've been wondering if I could sing about greed. Trying to find a way to talk about greed. It's been around a long time, since before we began. Before this was a nation, greed drove people to this land. Greed-driven men created slavery. Black men, women, and children became somebody's property. Maybe you don't know exactly what I mean. You don't really want to know about your and my greed. If you wonder whether you're infected by greed, then this song you really need. I've been thinking about how to talk about greed. I've been thinking about how to talk about greed. I've been wondering if I could sing about greed. Trying to find a way to talk about greed. I can see it in you. You can see it in me. We can see it in big corporations all throughout the government. See it in the banks. I can see it in the military. See it in the church. I can see it in my neighbor. It all shows up so clearly, you and your greed. I've been trying to find a way to talk about greed. I've been trying to find a way to talk about greed. I've been wondering if I could sing about greed. Trying to find a way to talk about greed. I never took a class from Howard Zinn. I grew up in a black community in Southwest Georgia, and that black community worked to socialize us to excel within the confines of the system we lived in. And the idea was to, in fact, be as fierce as you could be, short of getting yourself killed or put in jail because you were black. We weren't using black in those days. But for generations, we did that. And then we decided it was absolutely not a sufficient reason to be alive, because there is a limit to trying to save your life. If saving your life means getting used to being called out of your name, you need to question. And it doesn't mean you want to commit suicide, but it does mean that you don't want to get old and die with people calling you out of your name.